Thanks everybody for having me. My name is Luis Morante. Like Jared said, I'm on the board of the Casita Coalition. I also work on housing legislation for the Bay Area Council. I've been a lobbyist on housing in Sacramento for the past 5 or 6 years. And I've worked on most of the ADU legislation that's really transformed the industry. The legislature is ending, just kind of to set the stage, that legislature is ending its second House policy review. I'm pleased to be able to say all of our ADU bills are moving forward. I got to say, every legislator I talk to is still really enamored of the ADU industry. I think that's a really positive sign for us right now, and it's a reflection of all the hard work that folks are doing around the state. It's the jobs they're creating, the homes they're creating, the lives they're changing are being reflected upward. And I think that's just an important thing to remember, because it's a reflection that the work the Casita Coalition we're all doing is having an effect.
And
not
it's
to say there
important
are
for
threats. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say it's important for our members to know that their voices are being heard and that we're able to take that feedback and translate it into the language needed for policymakers to be able to act on it. So really
Exactly.
good.
And that said, there's always an attempt every year to repeal ADU law in some form or fashion. And we're able to quash those through the strength of our message and the strength of our organizing. So again, just get involved, stay involved, keep being involved, so that we can make sure that we're protecting really valuable law that's given California such a vibrant ADU industry and a growing one. Okay, end of the intro pitch. Maybe we'll start with Jared's favorite bill this year, just since I know
Yes,
you were probably watching
AB 434.
That's right. So there are three main bills I want to talk about today. We'll start with Jared's favorite, AB 434 from Assemblymember Grayson. Jared, do you want to give folks the intro on it?
Yeah, so AB 434, as if you remember, is the bill that gives HCD more enforcement mechanisms over a larger portion of housing law than they currently have. And so this gets to the issues we have in the field of the ADU ordinance not being the actual issue, but other local policies, regulations, and everything else. So they'll have enforcement mechanism over all of 65852.2, or what it becomes in the omnibus bill as the codes change, but gives them a lot more power, and that's helpful for those of us who are working with homeowners and with projects in the field. So
yeah, exactly right. So that passed its last policy committee yesterday, Senate Housing. Exciting stuff. And heads now to the last House's Appropriations Committee, which is a fiscal committee. That will be a challenge for it, even though it doesn't have a substantial state cost.
Let's move into the next bill that's heading to appropriations.
Sure.
Because I know that there's a couple that are heading to appropriations and a couple that are just moving on to second and third reading. So I'd say next, now we're moving into, I guess let's go to AB 1332, which is in the same place.
Sure.
That flew through its last committee as well. So that's still moving through. That's the repeatability bill, also known as a pre-approved plan bill. But we like to think of it in terms of repeatability because it gives a lot more options as far as local professionals who already have permitted units in those jurisdictions. So that's still moving through. It's in appropriations now, and then I'll hand it off to you for 1033.
Yeah, AB 1033 from Assemblymember Ting could really be one of the bigger bills of the year. This one allows, it repeals the state's ban on separately conveying an ADU apart from the principal dwelling unit, but it's opt-in. So local governments would have to choose that they want to participate in it. A lot of local governments are supporting the bill, so I hope that they'll follow up the bill's signature by opting in. San Jose, several others are supporting the bill. And ADU condos in places that allow them. Celeste did a lot of great research on this. are 30 to 60% less expensive than single family homes in commensurate neighborhoods, and for builders are really attractive options, and I think will be very attractive options in California because of the fee shifting provisions that we have protecting ADUs. And this has been one of the most energetic lobbying experiences I have ever had. And the bill passed its last policy committee, Senate Governance and Finance, last week, but we had to roll the chair. The chair, a Democrat, concerns with the bill, and so we had to cobble together enough votes to get around her.
Moving on to the last bill that has kind of been on the radar, and I guess has gone under the radar for a lot, which is AB 976, which is passed through not to appropriations, but back to a second reading and now to a third reading. So that was one that we expected to be a budget to roll into the budget, but is the process where it's at now mean that it's just going to go through on its own?
Yeah, I was pretty bummed to see that wasn't in the budget when the budget language finally came out. But it's in a good spot, and it skipped Senator Portantino, who killed the issue last year. He's the chair of the fiscal committee of the Senate. Some bills are allowed to skip him. This one did. I think that was great.
Yeah, it's what's really great. For those of you who don't remember, this is the bill that removes the sunset on owner occupancy. So it basically pulls owner occupancy from being an issue moving forward indefinitely, rather than having that cliff in 2025.
Right.
So the fact that it skips appropriation is a really great step.
I will say, I think we pushed really hard, organized legislators effectively enough that they were able to get this unreferred from appropriations, which meant Senator Portantino, our biggest challenge, didn't have a veto point on the bill, which reduced our need to put it in the budget. So really, I think they struck a fair compromise essentially with us on this one. And like I said, they're all guns blazing on trying to get ADUs out there. Leadership is in the legislature. So,
well, I definitely appreciate. I definitely appreciate the update today. I know we're getting to the end of both our time here, but our the legislative session. So it gets more important to make sure that these things are wrapped up. I know in years past we've kind of had things that kind of fell off the radar, and that was something that we're trying to make sure our membership is a little bit more educated about, and that we're staying on top of where things are at. So before we get to the last thing, make sure if you have any questions, we're going to talk about those live next, but if you have any questions after watching the video, you can like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that fun stuff. And Louis, at the end here, why don't we finish up talking about the $50 million that's back in the budget, and you can give us the final update on that.
The governor had initially proposed to eliminate $50 million in ADU funding that was available from last year's budget for this year. The legislature restored that money and also restored the California Dream for All money. I believe that was about $200 million for this year. So big action there. Cali Chife has not yet decided how it's going to spend the $50 million. The legislature has not created any expectation for how they do that.
Well, thanks, Louis, for joining us today.